Hello, hello. I probably look incredibly sweaty right now. It is because putting this thing on was such a freaking struggle. Um, I'll get into that a little later, but I wanted to come at y'all with a review of Corset Stories Stays. Apparently they have a little bit of a line of historically accurate corsets. In this case, these would be 18th century style stays. And I saw them, first of all, I'd like to give credit to the woman on, I believe, one of my vintage groups on Facebook for posting a picture of what she was wearing, which is this exact same set of stays. And so she commented that Corset Story was having a 4 for the price of 1 sale, and she mentioned that they had the 18th century style stays. And so I was curious. I recently commissioned some stays to be made by sometime in June, and so I will have kind of knowledge of kind of just a manufactured way of wearing the stays, or just a manufactured way of purchasing the stays versus someone actually taking your measurements and hand making them. I found someone on Etsy who would be able to make them for, I believe, around $160 up to about a 38 bust, which is exactly where I'm at. And so I will now kind of have that experience with both the machine made, just kind of general, here's a size, put it on, give it a try, versus one that's actually to proper measurements. And so that I will hopefully be filming mid-June or so, whenever I get the stays. They were ordered maybe just 3 or 4 weeks ago, and I think I have about 4 more weeks to go. Anyway, as you can see, I am wearing the stays. These are, like I said, from Corset Story, and I've got that glare there, sorry. These are from Corset Story, and they are, for the most part, pretty, I believe, period accurate for the 18th century, which of course was more specialized in, getting kind of off topic, but not really off topic. So corsets that we're usually used to or tend to be more like the Victorian style or Edwardian style, where it's kind of meant to give you a nice pear to hourglass shape, and a lot of people use it for tight lacing or just general corset training, waist training. And so those are the corsets that we tend to be used to, but as that was more an 1800s style, previous to that in the 18th, 17th, 16th, and I believe 15th possibly, or they may have had a certain, don't quote me on this, it's been a while, they may have had a different undergarment. You would have had stays at those periods of time, and the stays were more meant to give a literal conical shape. That is the word that I have heard so much. It literally is supposed to make you look like a cone, give you sort of no shape at all whatsoever. I'm touching my boobs. I'm so sorry. Bruh. But it's meant to give a straight, if not almost conical appearance in order to be sort of adjusted and elongated out with panniers or bum rolls or crinolines, if you want to kind of, not really crinolines, but farthingales, sorry, the Tudor Renaissance farthingales. And so this, being based off of that design, is supposed to give you that straight to possibly conical shape. Now, I have read and just kind of heard from general reenactors that stays aren't meant to be painful. Generally, most corsets aren't meant to be painful, and so I really wanted to make sure that in purchasing these from Corset Story that they would not be painful because so it's not my first time wearing corset. I have worn corsets honestly since high school, often on different styles, ones that cinch, ones that don't. And then of course I did do quite a bit of waist training for about 3 years solid in order to get the figure that I finally wanted. And so I wanted to make sure this wouldn't be painful because I'm not used to overbust corsets anymore like I used to be. I'm mostly familiar with underbusts, so I wanted to make sure this was gonna take my triple D's. Just gonna throw that out there. Wanted to make sure these stays would take whatever size bust came its way while still giving that shape and that kind of authentic feel. So the way the 4 for the price of 1 went was these stays happened to be the most expensive item that I purchased, and so I went ahead and paid the most expensive item, and the other 3 corsets were completely free. Like, I was shook when I heard about this. I've been interested in trying Corset Story for a while. Personally, I've only really used Orchard Corset in the past. They have been very helpful and everything usually comes out pretty well, and they do go ahead and cater to short torsos, which is precisely what I am, being 5'2". And so I'm used to Orchard Corset, but I'd always wanted to try Corset Story just because I'd heard quite a bit. And so this was my first purchase from theirs. And so, like I said, they had the 4 for the price of 1, this being the most expensive item at $239. Now, price point wise, you could probably find cheaper stays on Etsy, if I'm being completely honest. The person who I commissioned to do my stays, I believe the most I'll be paying is maybe $180, and that's including the shipping and taxes with Texas and everything like that. And so just throwing that out there, you could probably find cheaper stays on Etsy and just have someone make it exactly to your fit and to your shape, and so that they can go ahead and they'll be understanding the exact shape that you'll need. Otherwise, considering for $239, I got 4 corsets, I can't be too upset. That is not bad at all. So I'm gonna go ahead and show you all the corsets, and then we'll get a little more into this. Apologizing now, there's gonna be a lot of plastic noise and possibly my air kicking on. It is still Texas after all, and it is still very hot. So this is how they arrived. Just kind of your typical protective kind of sleeve. And this is another pair of stays, although I believe, if I'm not mistaken, and I'll put all of the details below, but if I'm not mistaken, this is supposed to be more of an early 17th century style, so more like a Baroque period instead of Rococo, which is usually what I go for. So it's got kind of that same design, but not quite. Goodbye. Okay. I'll grab that in a second. And so this is the other pair of stays that I got. They've got that little design in the back. And it is very nicely presented. Like this one, especially with the frill in the front, I think that's really cute. There was another floral one that was, instead of this kind of tannish yellow, kind of canary yellow look, it was purple. But of course that one was sold out. So I went ahead and got this one just because I'm really excited to try these stays. And I wanted to see how many kind of historically accurate ones I could get for the periods that I like specifically. And this one was close enough to one of my favorite periods that I figured it would just be fine. What I did not mention before. So the stays that I got, I'll be posting the information below. And then of course these luckily were pretty easy to find on the website. You can literally type in stays and it thankfully came up, or you can type in historically, it'll trigger the historically accurate corsets, and you should be able to see all the ones that they have available. And so the one that I'm wearing right now is a size 30. It did recommend that if you go with a size 30, it can go up to about a size 34. Normally I'm a 32, but quarantine hit me with 4 pounds. So now I'm a 33 waist, gotta work on that. And so there goes the air. But and so I wanted one that was gonna go from between 30 to 34, which was the 30. Now that being said, I will warn for my chestier women who aren't used to overbusts, it being stays, it is giving that, I don't know if I should do this, that kind of that look that you see with all 18th century clothing, that very busty, very buxom look. And so if you're worried that it might be a little too much for your chest, definitely take a look at their sizing chart for sure, because so with Orchard Corset, normally I would go with about a 28. They offer flexibility, but that's an underbust. And so even though I have the waist mostly to consider, now with the stays, I have to consider my bust as well. Bust being about a 38, give or take. And so with that being said, if you are a little bustier and normally you would go with the size, definitely double check that sizing chart to make sure it's gonna fit you comfortably up here. That being said as well, the sleeves here can be adjusted. I haven't adjusted them yet just because I wanted to put this on and see how it felt just sort of out of the literal packaging. And the one thing that I wish would change a little is that these sleeves were maybe just a little higher, because if you look right now, they're just kind of resting here. And maybe I'm misinformed, but most stays that I've seen pictured would have the sleeves up here, kind of more like a tank top kind of look. And so I wish they would rest a little differently, but I believe that has to do with how high the back is. The back on this is quite high. And one thing I noticed when giving my measurements to the person who will be doing my actual Etsy stays, I noticed that she specifically asked for that measurement from the back of your neck, shoulder to shoulder, so that she could figure out the correct placement for how high the back would go. Because I would say this is maybe just a little high, but then again, I'm short, I'm 5'2", and so I think because of that, the sleeves are just a little strange and kind of a little uncomfortable. But I think hopefully adjusting this, in fact, let's just go ahead and give that a, that's it, that's the show. This isn't gonna help that because I'm assuming this is mostly for if you're taller, because like, look, if you see how that's supposed to, so you would give it more string if maybe your shoulders were a little higher, I'm assuming if you were taller. So unfortunately, I think that's just gonna be how these sleeves sit on your shoulders. They're just gonna be kind of off to the corner and not really up high, which I think is maybe going to impact the bust just a bit, which could be good, could be bad, depending on your size, I'm assuming. But that being said, my only qualm is, once again, please know your size. Definitely look it up as best you can. And maybe they have, I believe I ordered on the weekend, so I wasn't able to speak to anyone. And of course, I believe this company is in the UK. Because of that, if I had just been off by a little, I honestly am not sure if these stays would have fit me. I'll stand again. I am unlaced, but as you can see, I don't have a lot to work with. This being the 30, usually I have a good amount of space to work with when I need to tighten fully. But as you can see here, I can just barely, I've barely got a bit of give. So if for some reason you might be worried about gaining weight, or if you are between sizes or anything like that, definitely double check the charts just to save yourself the shipping issues and everything like that, because how about this? I'm bloated because I am a dum-dum. I had like 5 slices of cheese pizza, all that my little pescatarian self could handle, and forgetting that I have the gastrointestinal issues of a newborn child, I decided to eat them all. And so I am really bloated right now. So as opposed to when I literally got these on Wednesday, trying them on, and then trying it on now, it was a struggle to get this on. And the problem that arose, I'm so sorry I've got that shadow there. The problem that arose with me was this top and this second one, because for some reason, I don't know if they're positioned differently as far as their construction or what. This one was not cooperating with this one, and then as soon as I got this one on, this one stopped cooperating. And it was not like that a couple of days ago. When I tried it on and my stomach was just kind of like normal kind of afternoon, it hadn't quite gotten the way it usually gets. And so keep in mind, if you think you may not have a lot of give, you may want to go maybe just a size up to be safe, because I'd rather have a corset that's too big that I can shrink on down than have one that is killing me. Thankfully, even as I sit here bloated, I am not uncomfortable, I'm not in pain, and so I think this luckily worked out, but it was a struggle to get on. Honestly, it took me about maybe a little over 5 minutes. I had to eventually just get in front of the mirror and completely just maneuver. Okay, and it was a bit of a struggle. So keep that in mind. You've already heard kind of my worries and opinion of it. I guess overall, the question is, would I return these? Absolutely not. Not for the price that I paid for them. These are very good, I believe, especially for just getting into the feel of stays. I got a sleeve breaking apart on me. Don't make me look like a liar. I think these are great. These are really great, especially, okay, I'm gonna say it this way. For the 4 for the price of 1, this is a great set of stays, and the fact that they have other historically accurate designs for their corsets are really cool, and I think it's gonna open up so many doors for those of us who do reenactment or just kind of general cosplay or just kind of general leisure play, I don't know. However, like I said, honestly, you could probably find a cheaper set of stays via Etsy, or someone who would do a commission for you where they would be taking into account your actual measurements and creating it for you. I have seen stays from as cheap as like the $90 range to as expensive as the $800 range on Etsy. It just kind of depends on your budget and how you want it to fit you, of course. For general stays, considering how many corsets I just got for the price of 1, this is pretty great. However, the question is, would I buy this if this was the only option? For example, if they were not running the 4 for the price of 1, would I have purchased these? Probably not, just because, like I said, I found someone and commissioned them with my measurements, and they will be doing those stays for around $160 to $180. This alone was $239. The other one I showed you would have been $239, and the others would have been about the $100 range. And so $239 wise, just buying the one alone, I'm not sure honestly whether I would have done it, just because I really want my exact measurements. But you cannot go wrong with this sale, and they are not as cheap as I thought they would be. Now for the shape, step back a bit. For the shape, you know what? We're gonna test out the shape. I'm gonna give you a better look and then we're gonna test it out and we'll see.